Hello, welcome to Yakanori. I'm Dan Sumption from Peakrill Press, and today I've been tidying my bookshelves and I've just pulled off Things That Never Happen by M. John Harrison, collection of short stories. I would love to read like every M. John Harrison short story. Maybe I will at some point. I'm going to read the last story in this book, Science and the Arts. Mona was in her late 30s. 2 years before we met, she spent some months in a psychiatric hospital. By the time it became clear that the constant pain she complained about was not imaginary, but the result of a botched operation, her career was ruined, and her immune system had broken down. She was anorexic, subject to panic attacks, and suffering from depression. She lived for a while in Stoke Newington, where she had a short affair with a journalist, then moved to Camden, where she took courses in pain management. She enrolled at the Slade. We were introduced about a year after that and began seeing one another every 2 weeks or so. She was unhappily involved with a sculptor, a dependent, manipulative man in his 50s. I was unhappily involved with a woman who had turned to novel writing after a career in TV drama. For a while, our mutual friends tried to matchmake us, but they weren't successful. Mona's flat was in a quiet crescent north of Camden High Street. It comprised 3 rooms, one of which she used as a studio, a kitchen and bathroom. The kitchen was very small. Mona didn't eat much, so she lived mainly at the other end of the flat, in the room which faced onto the street. There she had a computer, some bookshelves, a sofa, a television, and, arranged so she could watch the television from it, her bed. The bed was a small double, made up with a quilt and a stained white throw. There were 2 pillows, one old and very yellowed and without a pillowcase. When the pain was bad, or when she was cold, Mona would pull the quilt up to her chin and watch television from the bed while her visitor sat on the sofa. Or, halfway through the evening, she would get into bed like a child with all her clothes on. It was disconcerting. Even though you knew she was dressed, there was always a moment of uncertainty when she threw back the covers to get out again. A bad day always made Mona feel as if she was on the edge of a relapse. She phoned me at 7 o'clock one evening. "I don't think I've been eating," she said. The week before, she had finally managed to end her relationship with the sculptor, who had just had major surgery of his own. I went over to Camden to see if I could help. She was glad to have someone look after her for an hour or two, but careful to make it clear that, though she was attracted to me and knew I was attracted to her, she didn't want an affair with anybody at the moment. I said I hadn't come for that. I didn't expect a return on helping someone. She asked if she could hug me. I said yes. I was sitting on the sofa. She knelt on the floor in front of me and I put my arms round her. It felt awkward to me, but it was what she wanted. "I'm listening to your heart," she said at one point. "It's a great comfort to me." "You should cry as much as you want to," I said. She knelt on the floor like that for nearly an hour. To someone coming in, we would have resembled one of Egon Schieler's relentlessly awkward couples, but without the sex. All I could think was, how much her knees must hurt. I hadn't seen her for a month, and she was even thinner than I remembered. Eventually, she got up and went to bed. As soon as I thought she was feeling better, I cooked her a meal, which we ate in front of the television. I made her promise to eat more often and take things easy for a few days. When I stood up to go, at 11:30 or 11:45, she said anxiously, "Are you sure you can get home at this time of night? If it's difficult, you're welcome to stay." I would be all right, I told her. Home was only a few stops along the Northern Line. In fact, I was tired out by the effort of cooking. I wanted to go back so I could think about what any of this meant. 2 days later, we were in a Pizza Express. She'd asked me to explain the idea of quantum memory to her so she could incorporate it into some work she was doing for the Slade Foundation course. I was just saying something like, light can be a wave or a particle according to what the observer expects. when she interrupted, "This is very phallic, isn't it? Here you are, talking about very small things, and look what I'm doing." She was rubbing her fingers up and down the candle holder on the table between us. I didn't know what to make of that, so I said, "It is, isn't it? Ha ha." Then I went back to explaining the dual nature of light. "I've written it all down," I said. I walked her home. She went into the bathroom and changed into a pair of cotton pyjamas and a scruffy, homemade looking grey pullover. "I took what you said to heart," she told me. "I really did. Honestly, I've been eating much more." She spread a portfolio of her work on the floor so that we could look at it. There were photographs of strange tall constructions she had made using bandages, wire, scraps of paper, with quotations about illness on them. She had photographs of her surgery and of the sculptors. She was interested in text as object. She said that she used quotes from other people because she found it hard to trust her own opinions. I said that I had got round that in the 1970s by presenting my own opinions as quotations from other people, which seemed to authorise them for me until I had enough confidence to present them as my own. Then I made a cup of tea, watched part of a television programme about risk management, and got up to go at about 11:30. "It's quite late," she said. "You're welcome to stay if it's too late to get home." "The tubes run for another hour," I said. Earlier, I had signed one of my books to her. Inside it, I had written, "Eat well, get strong, take care." It was a novel about a woman who wanted to fly, but the best she could get was a cosmetic treatment that made her look like a bird. I apologised to Mona that all my books seemed to feature women who became very ill after a series of operations. This is what I had written down for her about quantum memory. Every particle that has ever been involved with another particle somehow remembers that involvement and takes it forward into the next transaction. Everything that has ever been joined remains joined in some way. This is only at the level of very small things. Quantum indeterminacy. A. If you know where a particle is, you can't know its velocity. If you know its velocity, you can't know where it is. B. Light can be described as both a waveform or a particle. It is not both at the same time. It is genuinely one or the other, according to what kind of machinery you use to observe it. Quantum particles begin as a potential on the condition we call empty space. They are then observed, or locked into place, by the rest of the universe. That is, one of their potential states is contexted by local conditions and chosen to become real. The option the universe didn't take up, however, still continues to exist, in some more informal way. Since each of these options can be spoken of as having a memory of the other, and since every mechanism for human memory proposed so far, from chemical cellular memory to a more broadly distributed holographic memory, has been discounted, some scientists have toyed with the idea that memory may be stored at the quantum level in transactions like those I've described. As science, it is speculative. As a metaphor, quite nice. All the rest, quantum indeterminacy, the dual nature of light, and so on. In fact, as far as fact can be ascertained using contemporary experimental tools, it was time I learned to protect women from my enthusiasms, so the ex-scriptwriter told me, just before she ended our relationship, on the grounds that a photograph of me with an old girlfriend had appeared in the pages of publishing news. Women, she believed, saw men's enthusiasm as a form of bullying. She called it male energy. I wasn't protecting Mona from my enthusiasm by sending her confused ideas about quantum physics printed in 18-point Gill Sans condensed bold type. Perhaps Mona thought of enthusiasm as male energy too. Perhaps that was why she had found herself giving the candle a hand job in the Pizza Express. Mona haunted her flat, wearing her shabby pullovers, with very short skirts and thick tights, She was part of the clutter, an uncompleted gesture, thin as a stick but always elegant. She was so composed. I walked past her in the living room without seeing her. When I went back in, she was standing by the table with one hand flat on the tabletop, staring down at a page of the newspaper, lifting it but not quite turning it. "Hi," I said. "Oh, hello." She spoke as if she had forgotten there was anyone else in the flat, or as if I had rung her up after a long absence. "I thought you were in the other room," I said. "No," she said. "I was here all the time." That evening we went into the West End to see The English Patient. Mona walked very slowly along Shaftesbury Avenue to the cinema. We got seats at the end of a row and sat leaning a little away from each other. She had taken the outer seat so that she could stand up in the aisle when she needed to. Standing up was one of the techniques she had been taught to help manage her pain. In one scene in the film, a man was supposed to be having his fingers cut off, or perhaps it was his thumbs. You didn't see anything, but there was a sudden indrawn breath from the audience. All over the cinema, people were wincing in case they did see something. Mona gasped and clutched my hand. She pulled me closer to her, and we sat like that for a moment or two. "I'm not sure about that film," she said on the way out of the cinema. "Its heart's too far in the right place." I asked her what she meant. "Oh, I don't know," she said. "I think I need a cup of tea." When we got back to her flat, I went to the kitchen to make it. While I was in there putting tea bags in the cups and doing a bit of washing up while I waited for the kettle to boil, I heard her go into the bathroom, then come out again. "I'm getting into bed," she called. "It's cold in here. Aren't you cold?" I said I was okay. When I took the tea into the front room, she had the television on. We watched that and drank our tea, and then I got up to go. "I worry about you leaving so late," Mona said. "Are you sure you can get a train this late? It would be so easy for you to stay." "No," I said. "Honestly, the trains seem to run forever." "You could be mugged or anything," she said. I laughed. She had the bedclothes up to her chin. She was just eyes. "I want you to stay," she said. "That's different," I said. I took the cups away and switched the TV off. She watched me undress. Then she lifted the edge of the quilt to encourage me to get in with her. "I thought you'd still have your clothes on," I said. She looked up at me anxiously, holding the quilt back so I could see. "I'm bleeding a bit," she said. "You won't mind, will you?"